Alright guys, Federalist era test. We have a blue review that I want to go over. Documents that you should have to help you study from the board. Okay, launching the nation notes, number 34, 36, Alexander Hamilton, national finance notes. Number 38, Washington's farewell address. 39, Alien and Sedition Acts. And, of course, Troubled Times for John Adams, number 41. Okay. So, blue review. Some of the things that are on the review in some ways is a little more detailed than parts of the test. So, if it's not on the test, I'm going to skip it. I want you to focus your study time. So, I'll just go in order. Number 1. Skip that, not on the test. Number 2, who was the first president of the United States of America? Of course, we know it's George Washington. You're going to need to make sure that you know first president and his vice president. Okay, so John Adams, vice president, and then next president, also a Federalist, is John Adams, and his vice president is TJ. So you need to know those pairings. Okay, 2 Federalists, and then Federalist and Democratic Republican didn't go so well. Okay, in the Constitution, Washington's cabinet, originally Secretary of State, Treasury, and War, and that's it. He did have a couple of, now you do need to know people, so number 5, don't study that. Number 6, Thomas Jefferson, TJ, so Secretary of State. Henry Knox, Secretary of War. Hamilton, Secretary of the Treasury. Now Edmund Randolph, he was the Attorney General, so this is the lawyer for the nation, and then John Jay was the head of the Supreme Court, so he was the Chief Justice. Okay, Hamilton's economic plan. Hamilton, Federalist, his economic plan didn't make everyone happy, but it was still good. Now he wanted to pay off all the national debt, all right, any money that we owed other countries. So the Netherlands, Spain, France, we owed them money about totaling $52 million. So we needed to pay all that off. Also, states, some of the states owed money, and they needed to pay that off as well. So states and the national debt. Now, the people who opposed this were the southern states. Southern states were like, hey, Hamilton, I know you want us to pay war debts, but we've already paid ours. And what Hamilton wanted to do was take all the state debt and clump it into the national debt, and then have everyone pay into that and just pay off that lump sum. But the southern states were like, we've already paid our war debts. We don't have anything to add to the debt, and it's not fair to ask us to pay off the northern states' Revolutionary War debt when we've already paid ours. So the southern states were like, no, Alexander Hamilton, I know you're Secretary of Treasury, but we're not going to pay. So he made a compromise. The compromise was, okay, southern states, how about if you agree to help pay for northern war debt in exchange for us moving the nation's capital to the south? And they agreed. So it's between Virginia and Maryland on the Potomac River. They carved out a special piece of land for that called the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. So you've heard of that. Now, number 10, the National Bank. Hamilton, Secretary of Treasury, one of his big deals was pay off the debt. Okay, to do that, I need a national bank. The purpose of the bank, specifically, you need to know, it had to do with everything federal. Everything for the nation's government was what it was for. It wasn't for the states specifically, it was for the nation's government. So, when we collect taxes, that goes to the national bank. When we are going to print money and start getting more money into circulation, that's going to be done through the national bank. If someone wants to get a loan to start a business, that's going to be done through the national bank. But all this is at the national level, not the state level. Number 11, skip that. Number 12, Whiskey Rebellion. The details of it aren't on there. but essentially one of the ideas Hamilton had to pay off debt was to get some money from farmers, and what they were doing was they were taking extra grain that they had, distilling it through a still into whiskey, and then they would use the whiskey to barter with, and they would use it like money. And the government was like, all right, let's start taxing these farmers money for every gallon of whiskey that they sell. And we can make, the federal government can make money that way. Well, the farmers got really mad, revolted against the government. Now here's the important part. George Washington sent thousands of troops, 13,000 troops, militia, to go put down this rebellion, this uprising, and they did. Why that was important? The Whiskey Rebellion, not as important as how it was handled by the government. So George Washington proved that he was a good leader, a strong leader, a capable leader, and that the federal government could handle internal domestic affairs. They could handle their business and run the country. This was a brand new country, and everyone was watching to see what they would do. So that was a defining moment for Washington's presidency. Okay, when Washington ended up finishing his second term, he wrote a farewell address to everyone. He had 3 warnings. So as many of you already know, don't form any permanent foreign alliances with other countries. Trade with them, yes, but don't form permanent bonds with them. Do not pay off national debt. Do not incur more national debt. So pay off what you owe, and then let the political parties go. Don't have political parties. So basically, we didn't listen to any of his warnings because even when he was president, political parties were already forming. When you have Alexander Hamilton, Federalist, versus T.J. Thomas Jefferson, Democratic Republican, completely disagreeing on many issues, even as they were part of Washington's cabinet. Now really what they were disagreeing on in one, if you're going to put it in one sentence, it's number 15. Hamilton and T.J. disagreed on how much power the federal government should have. Hamilton, Federalist, thought federal government should have a lot of power. T.J., Democratic Republican, thought, you know, the states, it needs to be tempered. Federal government power needs to be tempered with the states having lots of power as well. So they disagreed. 1617, very important. We've covered that many times in class, so I'm not going to spend video time on that. XYZ affair. Essentially, the United States, so now we've moved on from Washington's presidency into the next term of John Adams, Federalist. He served 1 term. We are having shipping problems with France, so to work that out, he sent delegates from the United States to go talk to the French ambassadors, and that wasn't going well. They wanted us to pay them a bribe and tribute, $240,000 bribe and $10 million tribute, so that they would, you know, help us stop the problems with the shipping. Of course, our delegates refused, and so did Adams, to pay. But that incident of them attempting to get a bribe from us and attempting to get tribute from the United States is the XYZ affair. And the XYZ stands for the 3 men, the names of the men who were trying to get bribes, the Frenchmen. Number 19, Alien and Sedition Acts. Okay. So this is all on number 39, if you're in my class, the yellow sheet, but I'll go over it. There are 4 main acts of these laws. They ended up being, of course, unconstitutional. So John Adams, the president, a Federalist, sees people who are moving from other countries into the United States. There's 2 political parties in the United States, and these immigrants are joining the opposite party. They're joining the Democratic Republican Party. And he doesn't like that because he's trying to promote the Federalist Party. So he comes up with these laws to stop all these immigrants from joining the opposite party and the other party from becoming too strong. So, Naturalization Act. People who are born in one country, move to the United States, and try to live there are called aliens, all right? If they have paperwork, they're legal aliens. If they don't have the right paperwork, they're there illegally. Now, if these people wanted to become U.S. citizens, once you're a citizen, then you can start to vote. Now, at the time, before the Alien and Sedition Acts, it only took 4 years for you to become a naturalized U.S. citizen. Through the Naturalization Act from Adams, now it was going to be bumped up to 14 years. So now it would take these people 14 years to be able to become U.S. citizens, and much, much, much longer for them to be able to vote. Alien Act gave the president the power to deport any non-citizens that he considered dangerous to the peace and safety of the U.S. So it's the Alien Act. Sedition Act made it illegal to use abusive language about the United States government. So really, the people who were running the newspapers, if they wrote articles that were saying how bad the U.S. government was, how bad Adams were, now that was illegal. And these people got put in jail. And not only newspaper people, but anyone could be put in jail for this. Now, of course, that's in direct opposition to our Bill of Rights, first Bill of Rights, freedom of speech, which is one of the 5 components of the Bill of Rights, First Amendment to the Bill of Rights. So, these were ultimately, Thomas Jefferson, got rid of the Alien and Sedition Acts once he was president. But, keep going. Number 20, Kentucky, Virginia resolutions. Okay, the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions are connected to the Alien and Sedition Acts. So, the Alien and Sedition Acts were laws that were ultimately unconstitutional. Now, the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions were resolutions made by these states, and they were able to find a legal loophole to not comply with the Alien and Sedition Acts because they were unconstitutional. So the legal thing that they did was they found this idea of nullification. So the concept is nullification. So the Kentucky-Virginia resolution said that states who found a federal law unconstitutional could choose to nullify it. Okay? It was void in their state and they didn't have to follow that federal law. And so Kentucky and Virginia did that, and they quit following the Alien and Sedition Acts, and they didn't put people in jail for these things. They didn't try to deport people. So what power did the Kentucky-Virginia resolutions help to establish for the states? The power of nullification. All right, last one, number 22. Still, we are in the John Adams presidency, but the very end of his presidency, and now we have this idea of midnight judges and this final court case that we learned about. As time is running out, the clock's ticking, John Adams is about to not be the president anymore. At the last little bit of time he had left, he was allowed to appoint judges to these special positions. So he was still the president. The president appoints these judges. And so he wrote all these commissions, and then time runs out. He's no longer the president. And the next, the incumbent, Thomas Jefferson and his people are supposed to deliver these commissions to all these brand new judges. They didn't all get delivered. And so you have Mulberry, who was supposed to get a commission from John Adams saying, hey, you get this big job from the president, way to go. But Madison refused to deliver some of the commissions, one from Mulberry, so Mulberry took him to court. So this is Mulberry v. Madison is the court case. The Supreme Court ultimately ruled in Mulberry's favor and said, Madison, you were supposed to take the commission. Mulberry, you're supposed to get the job. But what came out of it was this concept of judicial review. So the Supreme Court was granted, because of this court case, this new power of judicial review. So the judicial branch is granted the power to compare laws or court cases to the Constitution and hold them both up together and say, is this law constitutional, yes or no? Okay, is this court case constitutional, whatever the ruling is, yes or no? And if they're not, they kick them out because they're not constitutional, whether it's a law or not. And that was a brand new power. What I forgot to answer was this concept of midnight judges. When John Adams, last second, right before he's not the president anymore, fills out this paperwork for these commissions to appoint judges, they were appointed at the very last second, at midnight, before it changed from one president to the other. So, kind of the slang term for it is midnight judges. It's not really a good practice because it doesn't help the new president. Federalist John Adams appointed a lot of Federalist judges. Thomas Jefferson, who's coming in, is a Democrat Republican. It doesn't mix well. Okay, that is the quick version of the Blue Review. You've had several days to do it. I hope this video helps. The Blue Review from, I think, all the teachers is due tomorrow. Okay, the test is multiple choice, and you'll have a class set to read and then an answer document to write your answers on. Multiple choice, so the format is quite easy. You're a rock star for watching this video. Way to go, and I know you're going to do great. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.